How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Welcome to another All About RVs. Today, we're going to be looking at the number one piece of RVing gear from 2025. What, in my opinion, is the most consequential piece of RVing gear. And so we've had a lot of great things hit the market this year, from the Sewer Adapter Pro that everybody went crazy over. We have the Safe Flush for dumping out your black tanks. So we had new solar power stations hitting the market this year, and we had backup cameras that are actually high quality. But for me, the number one piece of RVing gear that's gonna make the biggest difference for RVers is the Chill Cube. So let me break it down, because after using it, I discovered about 5 things that really impressed me and a few things that really surprised me. So let's not waste any time, let's get right into this. So now to start off with a quick overview of the Chill Cube, because you might be saying to yourself, this came out last year. Why are you talking about it this year for the product of the year? That's because this year was the first year that we were able to purchase it and be able to put it on our RVs. It wasn't just for the OEMs. Anybody's able to get this and put it on your RV. Looking at prices on eTrailer, it's very competitive for the amount of technology and kind of rebuilding the entire system for this unit. So it's pretty impressive. And I think it sets a new high mark for ACs out there that other manufacturers are going to have to chase and try and match up against. And so there are other ACs out there with inverter compressors, because that's one of the biggest features inside of this unit. But this one takes it a step beyond that and actually gives us some hidden features that I don't think a lot of people consider and think about in this unit. So with that inverter compressor in it, I think a lot of people's perception is it's going to be quieter and you don't need a soft start. It's already built into it, which it is true. It is massively quieter. You probably can't even tell that it's really on right now. I can hear the leaves rustling outside in the breeze more than I can hear this. And saying that you don't need a soft start, thinking that it already has one built in, is like saying if you were to buy an electric vehicle like a Rivian, that you're going to be going to the gas station less to get gas. Which is true, because you're not going to be buying any gas. But it's not the greatest analogy, because you're still going to be going to a charging station and spending a considerable amount of time there. What we have for the startup on a device like this, being point number one, is that you have 0 startup amps for a surge. You're just going to have running watts as it begins to spool up. So we did a test on this earlier in the summer, comparing the different startup devices depending on your AC. And when we tested the Chill Cube, there was just no startup spike at all. So when a startup device will take it and cut it in half, this doesn't have any spike whatsoever. So it's not that it has a soft start device built into it's that it has that inverter compressor being variable speed. It can spin up slowly and it can also spin down slowly. So it has multiple speeds that it can achieve depending on how it needs to cool, which is going to lead to other advantages, but having it to where you can start this on a small generator or an inverter, or if you had multiple of these in an RV and you're on a 30 amp supply, you don't get any surge whatsoever when it is starting up. So that's a big advantage. So with that first advantage, that one's pretty widely known. Now the second advantage with this unit is something that I haven't heard a lot about, and it's kind of the intelligence built in behind the unit. So for example, when we fire up the AC that came on our RV, which is a 15,000 BTU Coleman Mach AC, when we fire that up, it's going to be a 15,000 BTU AC. Yes, we have high and low on there, but really the amp draw is very minimal between the two of those. So now with the Chill Cube, we have a couple of functions. One that's built in and intended to use, and one is just understanding the way the AC works so that we can draw less power. So the first function that's built in is our gear function. By using this, we can bring down the AC to 75% of its capacity or 50% of its capacity. So if you're on a limited power supply, inverters, generators, things like that, where you need to kind of cap the amount of power that you're going to be using, you might want to choose a smaller AC. And with this function, we have the ability to bring it down to those different levels so that we're not going to draw as much power. Yes, we're going to lose some of that cooling capacity of how much it can do, but we're also going to limit the power so we're not going to be tripping breakers and consuming as much electricity as we would. This is huge for boondocking. Being able to have an AC on the RV where you don't have to compromise maximum cooling when you're connected to the grid, but then at the same time, having limited power consumption when you're off grid and you don't want to use as much. So that simply means that you can run your AC on a 15 amp outlet if that's all you had available, because you can limit it at 7 amps, not even getting close to tripping a 15 amp breaker. Now, the hidden feature that's in there is when you're manipulating the fan on the AC from low, medium, high, and turbo that we have on here, when I've dropped it down to a lower setting, it actually brings that compressor down at a lower speed as well, which is going to draw less power. Compared to on the Coleman Mach, it's either on or off. If I'm changing that fan from low to high or high to low, it's not changing the compressor, it's just going to be changing the fan speed of the air coming into the RV, which is a reason why sometimes when you put your AC on low, it will freeze up because you're not getting enough of the warm air inside the RV to go over those coils, and sometimes it will freeze up in that setting. Compared to on the Chill Cube, we get the compressor actually spooling down, having that variable speed, so it's going to be drawing less while we bring that fan speed down. So that basically gives us the ability to choose the size of the AC depending on our circumstance. If I want to draw less, I can turn it down and it will draw less. If power is not a concern and I want maximum cooling, I can set it on maximum cooling and get the most out of it. These are an 18,000 BTU AC, and I've definitely felt the difference between this and our 15,000 BTU Coleman Mach. On turbo, it moves a surprisingly large amount of air. So for me, that's a pretty big advantage, being able to manipulate the draw of the AC depending on my situation. On this topic of controlling the unit, I wanted to highlight that there are options out there when actually controlling the unit itself. We have a remote that came with the unit. You can also upgrade or change to a wall thermostat if you wanted to, but there's options out there. And I'm going to put links down in the description to everything that we're talking about in this video, because there are more options and things need to be paired together. So eachRother has been a sponsor of the channel for a long time for the gear and selection that they have on their website, but also for the customer service. Because on these units, they're basically two different types of units. It's not like a normal AC out there where you have just your main AC unit and then you choose the inside trim, whether you want a ducted or non-ducted. We have two completely different built AC units for the ducted and the non-ducted. And then you have the options of how you would like to control it. There's just a lot of options to be able to go through to get it exactly how you would like it. So like I said, links are going to be down in the description. But I just wanted to highlight that you can have wall mounted units and you can have a remote if that's the way you wanted to go. Even on the remote, they have a follow me mode. So if you wanted to change the temperature, but you wanted that to follow you to where you're going to be sitting in the RV, you can set it to where this is going to be the thermostat and sending it back to the AC, whether it needs to ramp up or ramp down for you to be comfortable. As long as this has a line sight view of the AC, it can change that. It's kind of a safety feature built into it. If you take it outside of the RV, it's not just going to ramp up. This needs to be inside the RV and pointed in that direction. But one of the big things about this AC is just how much quieter it is than the standard ACs. But we've dealt with quieter ACs in the past, so I wanted to see how it lined up against the rest of the ACs that we've tested in the past. So the standard Coleman Mach AC that came on our RV was at 52 dB for low and 53 dB at high. And that's with the RV airflow, which brings that decibel level down even more. Now the EcoCool, which was the quietest AC we've ever tested, was at fan speed number 1 at 42 to 43 dB. Fan number 2 was at 49, fan 3 was at 49, and fan number 4 was at 51 dB. Now we come over to the Chill Cube, and the ducted version was at 38 dB for low, 42 dB for fan speed 2, and at fan speed 3 it was at 47 to 48, and on turbo it was at 50 dB. And then the non-ducted was even quieter than that at 37 dB, at fan number 2 is at 42, fan 3 was at 50 dB, and fan number 4 was at 52 dB. But the most impressive is when it goes into auto and that fan slows down even more at 27 to 28 dB, making it the quietest AC that we've ever tested, especially for this size and capacity. And this is really where it gains some efficiency, also being one of the more efficient ACs that are out there on the market, but you can probably barely even know that it's working. You can probably see the air distribution moving up and down, but it is really hard to hear. Now, something that's pretty interesting with this unit is you saw it in the sound samples, we had the ducted and the non-ducted, and there was a difference between the two. The non-ducted is the first one that they came out with, and I will say that I think that that is the closest thing that we can get to a mini split without it being a technical mini split. The design and the concepts and everything that they packed into that unit is taking all of the same ideas and components from a mini split and putting it into something that is designed specifically for an RV. And for me, I think there's actually a couple advantages with this over going with a mini split. For one, it's designed for the RV, so it's going to go in a spot that RVs are typically already ready for. The 14-inch opening is exactly where this is going to fit. So if you had an AC on there, you can swap it out with this. And for us, we don't have a good space inside of the RV in order to put the mini split. We don't have an end wall or a front wall that's going to be able to blow it through the RV. We'd have to put it on a side wall, and it's just not going to distribute the air as well as this will. And another thing that they take advantage of with this design is they use the condensation that's built up in an AC that's always going to happen and use it for their advantage to make the system more efficient. If we had a mini split on the inside, we have to have a way to get that condensation outside of the RV so that we don't cause any damage or leaks on the inside of the RV. But with the way that they designed it, they use that condensation to cool off the coils that are outside of the RV. So the condensation stays on the exterior portion, but they direct it to the condenser coils. And the fan that's there has a ring around it, so it picks up the moisture of that condensation and puts them on the coils so that they can cool down even better, which helps with efficiency. So one, that's going to make the unit more efficient than it would be without that. And number two, it keeps that condensation on the outside of the RV, not allowing that water damage to potentially happen on the inside of the RV. But the combination of the variable speed inverter compressor along with the programming and technology they put in there, with the added bonus of using the condensation in there, this makes it one of the most energy efficient RV ACs out there. It's one of the things that's really impressed me about this unit, us being able to be off-grid, running the AC, even running it at night and not fully depleting our batteries. The way that it goes into that efficient mode and consumes less power is definitely something that I liked about this unit. So now you compile all of these advantages, put them into one unit. We no longer have a surge at startup when you're using the AC. We can have a more efficient AC all the way through the entire process. We can manipulate it into drawing less power when we need to. The sound is a massive improvement. We can have a conversation in here. We can watch TV. You can function in life with a quieter AC in a unit that's designed for an RV. And that's why I think it's the mark for a lot of these other manufacturers to chase. It's the mark to be at this point. We do have some RV manufacturers out there putting true mini splits inside of their RVs, but they have to make sure that they plan their layout inside the RV to be able to accommodate a mini split. But for all the RVs that are already out there that want some of this new technology, kind of this generation 2 RV AC, it's available to us now. It took me quite a while to be able to get my hands on these ACs, to be able to test them out. They were on back order for quite a while, so links are going to be down in the description to these ACs. If you were looking at the ducted versus the non-ducted, it's all going to be right down in the description and in that first comment. So if you were limping your AC along for this last season and planning on upgrading in the spring, definitely take a look at this one. You're going to have increased efficiency, more cooling, and a quieter experience. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for today. I hope some of this information helped you out, seeing what I thought was one of the most consequential pieces of RV gear for 2025. So hope you guys enjoyed this. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will. See you next video. Take care.